Hello there, hope you're doing well. Right after filming my last video, I went to immigration. Don't press the wrong button. The result of which was I got a new visa. Hooray! If you've watched some of the previous videos, you'd know this was something that was preying on my mind for a while, so I'm really happy to get it. Another exciting thing that happened just the day before yesterday is I quit my job, one of my two jobs, because my boss was not very good. And I'd been meaning to quit for a while, and then some stuff came up where there were some unreasonable demands made of me, and I thought, no time like the present. So with the visa change, which means I can stay here, not as long as I asked for, but you know, like we take what we get, right? And also the job change or job disappearance, my status has changed, and one status that hasn't changed as much as you might think it would is my Goodreads currently reading list. Such a stretch. So the status of my Goodreads currently reading section is something of an embarrassment to me because, I mean, I guess I don't know how everyone else uses it, but for me, like, I've got kind of personal rules. I don't take things off it unless I've actually read them, you know, cover to cover. Because otherwise, if you take it off, it gets counted as read. And I haven't read them, so I don't want to put it in read. And I know you can kind of get around this if you make like did not finish shelf and then set that to mutually exclusive with the other shelves. But that's kind of a hassle for me, and I don't want to make I gave up on it kind of shelf, because personally I'd find that a little bit depressing. And yeah, I'd rather actually finish the things that I set out to read. And that means, as you can imagine, there are some things which have been on that list for quite a long time, as we will see in this video. Also, recently I added the 10th book to my currently reading list, and 10 is a nice number, right, to make a little list of. So these are the 10 books, and I'm going to go in the order of date added in reverse. So the ones that I actually added recently and the ones that I really am currently reading first, and then going back in time until we reach things from the prehistoric era, which should not really be on this list, but because of my stubbornness are still there. So, first on the list we have, I'm looking at my laptop here, The Drifting Classroom Volume 2, which is a manga that I added on October 5th, 2020. So, yeah, this is a manga about set in the 70s, written in the 70s, about some kids, and they go to school, and then their school is suddenly teleported, not like the classroom, the whole building is teleported into what is heavily implied to be a post-apocalyptic future. And, you know, so outside the school grounds, it's just this barren, freaky looking wasteland. Looks like we've got a sort of Lord of the Flies scenario about to break out on campus, or it's already breaking out. Like, to be honest, it's kind of surprising how fast people have gone to just like murdering children, but I think it's just that kind of story. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Next up we have The Secret Garden, which I added on October 2nd. This was an audiobook that I saw was free on what's it called? Apple Books. And the thing that sold it to me was that the narrator is Karen Gillan, who was probably the best part of the Doctor Who reboot, which is still ongoing. But when I was watching it, then Karen Gillan's Amy Pond was one of the best things about that show, I think. Also, I find Scottish accents are generally quite soothing for me, and like I know what her voice sounds like, and I thought, oh, I want her to read me a story. This would be great. It would be comfortable. It's like kind of, you got that air of familiarity and stuff. And unfortunately, like The Secret Garden involves Yorkshire accents and like kind of posh Southern British English accents, and Karen Gillan is not that great at either of those, so I've been kind of wincing along through it. But you know, like, bless her, she's trying, and it's interesting. Next up is this big boy, Demons by Dostoevsky, which I added on September 14th. This begins with like a list of characters and how to pronounce their names, and like, for those who don't know, in Russian novels, often like one character will have 3 different names because there's like the patronymic and the diminutive, I think. So there's 33 main characters, each with 3 different names. It's set in a little village, and it keeps like introducing new characters and suggesting like, oh yeah, this character is going to be coming to the village soon. So it keeps like anticipating the next main character to come in. And I'm on page 80 so far, and it's still doing that. It's still suggesting that main characters are yet to visit, and they're going to visit. And the narrator is like, the story's going to begin really soon, and I haven't quite gotten to the point where the story begins, but I'm nearly there, and you need to know this first before I begin the story. And at page 80, just a few pages before, he says, this is the event which actually starts off the chronicle that I'm about to tell you. So I still don't know what this is about. I'm like 80 pages in, but that said, it's really enjoyable. Just this sort of massive preamble, and there's some scenes in the preamble which are really funny, and like there's this one that I just remembered the other day and it had me laughing hysterically to myself in my flat. I should probably hang out with people more, shouldn't I? Next we have Flights by Olga Tokarczuk, I think, added on September. I think I'm just going to add the date like afterwards because it's kind of a hassle to keep looking down at the computer. This is an interesting book because I had it and then had to return it to the library because somebody had reserved it, and then I just got it back again about a week ago and started reading it again yesterday. So I am actually currently reading this one, as with the other ones, and it's really interesting. It's like kind of like reading somebody's travel notes. It's like it's just little jottings and also kind of like flash fictions, and yeah, I'm still also with this one not really sure what it's about, but that's kind of part of what the allure is, and the writing is great. Then we have Beauty in Disarray by Harumi Satoshi. I'm really loving this. It's like you're in the heart of this feminist editorial group who put out a magazine, a literary journal called Seito, or Blue Stocking, in early 1900s, 1911 I think it was, in Japan. And it's a real story. It's got everything in it, it's got like scandal, it's got like lesbianism, it's got these women sticking up for their ideals in the face of a sexist society, and the backlash from the press, and the police shutting down their magazine and banning stuff, and it's just really good. That's kind of flopping around. Something that I like about this is like it's about a group of women who are so inspired and inspiring, and like you feel their passion, and it's completely different from Demons in that way, where there's also like this revolutionary group, but the writing is so cynical towards them. They're so like self-interested really, and like all of their ideals are seen to be like kind of self-serving and like selfish. And in this one, like while they're selfish characters, they're also, there's idealism and like kind of, I guess, like hopefulness. So yeah, in a way, this is a really good companion piece for that. I'm enjoying it so much that I'm really taking my time with it because I'm going to be sad when it's over, But yeah, I've got that much, so maybe like a fifth, bit less than a fifth more to go, and which is 2 chapters. That's how she writes her chapters. Her chapters are pretty massive. The chapters are so random in this book. It's like her editor told her, like, it's like she didn't write them, and then her editor said, you have to have chapters, and she was like, okay, here, and then what, more, here. Anyway, next one is this dual language edition of Unnatural Selection, which is not the full Unnatural Selection, but like kind of, I guess, what Penguin or somebody who works for Penguin selected. So it looks short, and it's actually even shorter. It's like, because half of it's in Chinese, but I haven't finished it. I got it when I went to China a year ago. Oh yeah, I didn't say the date. The date was August 11th. So yeah, August 11th, 2019. Right, so there's a jump of 1 year between these 2 books on my currently reading list. This was like a really great companion while I was in China, and then I got back to Japan, and I think I read a tiny bit and then just stopped. I love the parts where Darwin gets really passionate about what he's talking about, and some bits are really insightful and interesting, but also it's pretty old and it's science, so I have to kind of be in the right mood for it, and but it's so short. I should just get this one out of the way, right? Next is A Critique of Everyday Life by Henri Lefebvre. Now, this is an academic book, and normally another personal imposed rule here is that academic books don't go on the currently reading list unless I'm going to read them cover to cover. So that's the vast majority of them not on the list. But in this case, I really did want to read this one because all of it, because I like the idea and I like the writer. So the idea is that, we have to move the idea of, we have to move the concept of Marxist revolution from this big political narrative of like just the working class over like throwing off their chains and so on. And we have to move that into our everyday lives. So we need to like create socialism in things like architecture and popular culture and social spaces and how we communicate and just the daily rhythms of life and stuff like that. So that's like, I think nowadays it's not such an amazing idea, but like at the time in the 60s, it was a big deal. So I'm really interested in it and I want to know more about it. The beginning is a bit dull because he's situating all his ideas in relation to like socialism in France in the early 60s or in the late 50s, I think. And it's just like a very specific moment in time which I don't know anything about. And you know, I think if you don't know about like the Communist Party and like who broke with them and where he agrees with them and where he doesn't agree with them, it's like it's kind of hard to relate to. So I did give up on it, but I will get back to it one day, I am sure. Next is 1000 Plateaus by Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari. This is another huge academic book. And I think the writers would actually like the way I've been reading it because they've written in a way that they encourage you not to read the chapters in chronological order, but to kind of jump around to them, like Hopscotch by Julio Cortázar, which I think I mentioned at another video in this channel. But yeah, it's like it doesn't have, their image of thought is that it shouldn't be hierarchical and it shouldn't be something which, you know, like you build one idea builds to the next one, builds to the next one, like logical proof or something like that. Instead, it should be creative and dynamic and, you know, some point leads to another and it's unpredictable and suddenly thought will come out of nowhere. And that's what their kind of vision for philosophy is. And so, you know, the chapters are all like kind of taking different things and different images and ideas and like using them as starting points. And yeah, like I've been reading it not chronologically and also not in one space of time. So just taking chapters out over a course of years probably fits the way you're supposed to read this book better than just, you know, reading it cover to cover all in one go. And so I think as the authors would approve, I think I'm completely justified in reading it the way I've been reading it, which is basically not reading it. Next up is Moby Dick. Need I say more? I've been reading this almost since I came to Japan, like a bit after I came to Japan, I started reading this book. And it's, yeah, I kind of like having it unfinished, which sounds weird. Like I've gotten used to having it unfinished because it's the kind of book where, you know, like not a lot happens. Like they go on the whaling thing. Once their voyage starts, they're just whaling for a long time and like different things happen and he talks about whales and he talks about whaling and like that's the whole book. And I don't know, like because it doesn't have that sense of a plot, then the fact that even when I'm not reading it, I feel like I'm kind of still on the Pequod. Is that the boat? I think the boat's called Pequod. I'm still on the boat. And just having that in the background is kind of nice. You know, I don't feel like I have to go anywhere. I feel like I've just got this adventure kind of going on in the background of my life. And that's a nice feeling. So yeah, I don't feel guilty about this one at all. And last and first, as it were, this book, Japanese Poetic Diaries, translated by Earl Miner, and it has 4, I think, diaries in it. Nowadays, again, like I made another rule for myself, which is don't put like short story collections or like compilations like that on my currently reading list, because the way I read them is I read like one and then I put it away for a bit and then I read another. So yeah, this was put on before I made that rule, so I haven't taken it off yet. As people who've watched some of my previous videos will know, I recently read the Diary of Izumi Shikibu, which was a big, like I think the longest one in this book, and there's only a little bit left to go, 2 more diaries in there, and one of which I've actually already read, but like in a different translation. But this translator is so good, based on what I've read so far, that I'm really excited to reread that and then read the last one and then finish this one day. So there you go. That was it. That was all the stuff that I'm currently reading and not currently reading, but officially currently reading. Thank you for watching. If you watched all the way through, then I will reward you now with a short milkshake tutorial.